I saw that. I was in.
Our monitor is back.
Then the next week.
Well, that's very nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, 6 p.m., so we call the meeting to order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, June the 8th. If you would at this time, please rise for our invocation by Commissioner Jones, followed by our pledge.
Lord, bless us as we gather to do the work of Upson County, and bless these people that attended, and bless all the people that are watching us on YouTube, and hopefully we make all the right decisions, but sometimes we just do what we got to do. And Lord, bless us all and bring us everlasting health. Amen.
If you join me in the pledge, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right. All right. First on the agenda is the public hearing. It's a rezoning 2021-01 Simona Investment Group, Thomaston, registered agent Matthew Mallory representing Matt Smith, rezoning from R2 to C2 at 2544 US Highway 19. It's 0.9 acre parcel. So, is there a motion to open the hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of opening the hearing? It's unanimous. So the public hearing is now open. I have one individual signed up for comments for the public hearing. When I call your name, if you would stand, state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
All right. I'm Steve Sadler, 1060 Laramie Drive. I'm here to speak about the current zoning request, and I was wanting to hear what the zoning request would be, because if you don't mind, I'll come to the front.
Yeah, please do.
Okay,
Thank
yeah. My concern was that I talked to Matt. I actually talked to him, and he said that the initial thing he was going to do was put storage buildings on that particular piece of property. But I think it's been reported as retail setting now. So I guess my concern first is what's going on with that particular property. And the reason why I'm concerned is that my property is adjacent to that property. So now we're going to have a potential commercial property adjacent to a residential property. And through my little bit of research I've done on it, I don't know if we actually have a stipulations we can put on commercial property when it's next to residential. I don't know if we have that capability to do that at the moment as far as in our county. So I was coming to ask for some stipulations, some setbacks potentially. But first I want to hear kind of what's going on with that particular piece of property. And unfortunately, you know, the potential buyers of that property want to rezone are not here. So I don't know where we stand with that. I can voice my concerns, but my concerns would be kind of not valid, not knowing exactly what's going on with that particular piece of property. I do have pictures, if y'all don't have to pull it up, but my property is adjacent on the north side and the east side of that particular property. I don't know if you know the gentleman Carlos Bell on that property, and he's since passed away. And I think Matt or that group has bought that particular piece of property. I have the picture if I can just kind of get a visualization of it.
Yeah.
So we got that. You got that.
So you're
My house is right here with the pool, and my driveway starts right down below, and right there. So, and my mom's house is right in front where my property is. And
This one here or over?
No, it's from in the neighborhood.
This one? Oh, this one?
No, on back down. That's my property right here with the pool.
bottom right.
Bottom
bottom right.
It's going, it'll come down. That's my mom's property right there. And Miss Barbara Shrimpshire and Johnny Caldwell is the next property on adjacent street, which is right in front of the current storage buildings. I think is Adams storage buildings. And that's one of the concern. Adams, you know, there was a buffer put in place years ago with that. I think he came in there and cut the trees down. And now it's just open into the neighborhood right there, so it's just an eyesore, in my opinion, in the neighborhood. And I know right there, Carlos Bell, we have like a handshake agreement to plant Leland cypress on the particular property. And as you know, Leland cypress has a lifespan, and some of the trees are dying out. And if we continue with this particular piece of property with the in the commercial rating, I would like to see a setback happen with natural barrier in that setback. maybe 25, 35 foot. I'm not sure exactly what exactly is the protocol. Just from a little research I've done, 25 to 35 foot seems to be around the right area as far as setbacks. And in that setback, really no activity as far as with commercial property, no parking, loading, unloading services done in that particular setback. And that setback contains natural vegetation that's there in place. I would also like to see an opaque fencing put in place, maybe 8 foot tall, depending again on what's going on that particular property, and that was kind of dependent on the type of buildings that's going to be there. That was just another concern as far as, because with my mom, she is going to be right in front of it, but it's concerned as far as the noise coming from the highway, and also just the sight from the neighborhood. And again, with the opaque fencing, I just want to make sure that it's something that's pleasant is put in place that will help the community, because as we know, this is a gateway coming to the community on 19. And coming in from the north out there, we will be able to see the property. I just want to make sure that whatever is put it there, that a fencing is put in place, and that fencing is kind of consistent with what we want to do in our community as far as making our community, beautiful, and making sure that people, it's nice to see on 19. Because as you know, right now with the 19 project going on, there's a lot of, like of a better phrase, buildings that are, in my opinion, that are I'm kind of glad to see this out of the way, so to speak. We have new buildings going into place, and it just from a gateway standpoint coming to the community, that's just kind of like what I would like to see. And that's pretty much it. Again, without knowing exactly what the property is going to use for, it's kind of for me to kind of, comment on other specifics of what's going on with that particular property. So, now, any questions you may have of me? So.
These are public comments, so not a back and forth. So.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
I do apologize. I may have to skip out of the work because I've got my meeting I got to get to tonight too. So, and I guess my next question after this is that we just didn't want to make sure that if it is storage buildings, that the storage buildings will be something that the community needs, and that will be something that is something that we want on 19. I think, again, I will say to as far as it's a gateway coming to our community, we want to make sure that the buildings we put in place are consistent, and that we want to make sure that they are consistent with what the plan is for our particular community. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Sapp. All right. There's no one else signed up, so is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor? Closing the hearing? Unanimous, hearing's closed. All right, Mr. Courier.
Yes, sir. The property owner is Simonia Investment Group LLC. I believe the purchase has been closed according to Mr. Smith, who is the representative. I'm not sure why he's not here. The request is to go from R2 to C2. You recall in the aerial photograph, and we'll show you again, there's actually a parcel immediately to the south in that photograph, and he apparently bought both of those. So his plan is to join those two together for a larger parcel, as I understand it. The discussion that we had with him and he had with the Planning Commission was that he is really looking at mini warehouses, but if that wasn't doable or acceptable, that he probably would look at some sort of a retail store if it was successfully rezoned. As noted in the staff report, if he does want to pursue the mini warehouses, of course the moratorium has now been dropped, but also those are only approved by special exception in the C2. So if that is what he chooses, he is going to have to apply for that special exception and go through a similar process to this rezoning. The lot we're talking about right now is a little under an acre, 0.91. This is substandard, but it's substandard for the R2 and the C2, so it's not really standard for any of the zoning. The normal time when we ask for proof that this was this size is at the building permit time. I suspect that maybe these lots have been like this for a long time, and maybe even pre-zoning in 95, which means that this, from a size perspective, they're grandfathered in, that even though they don't meet it, basically they didn't meet it in 95 when zoning came in, and so they would be accepted. But again, I don't have that information. On the other hand, if you combine the two lots together, you'd have a little under 2 acres and you'd have more than you needed. So We just have to see where things go in terms of the plan. You have sort of mixed zoning in this area. It is some R2. We'll show you the zoning map, which you do have in your packet in a little bit. You got the R2, C2, and AR in the area. This is the description of the two zoning districts and sort of the goal of what you would have if you were going to zone a piece of property in this fashion or leave it in the R2. Also, by state law and your own ordinances, there are general review standards for rezonings. These are the standards by which the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners are to use to determine the acceptability of a proposal. In terms of the staff analysis and the proposed use, it's a little wishy-washy, but we suspect he's going to be pursuing the mini warehouses. On the other hand, if you approve this rezoning as is, an open request, anything acceptable in the C2 could be approved. So if you have any idea for any restrictions that you want, you could either do, there certainly could be imposed tonight, whether they're aesthetic type conditions that you heard referenced during the public hearing, or even use restrictions. Also, this is a major corridor, the major corridor, and I think we have a lot of tradition in this country to strip commercialize these as we see them as commercial corridors also. I would hope that we would not repeat that mistake, that in an ideal world, maybe in a revised comprehensive plan, we would plan commercial nodes along our major roads, 36, 74, 19, say, okay, these are where we envision the large commercial nodes and maybe the smaller ones, and outside of that, you're really on your own for AR type uses, residential, etc. I certainly would never recommend that we strip commercial up and down 19, 36, or 74, and we want to make sure this is not a step in that direction. The zoning itself, you do have C2 immediately adjacent to this parcel. These are rather small parcels, which means in terms of a planning perspective, they're not very efficient. Literally, each lot could have a separate driveway as opposed to a larger commercial lot where you can integrate uses and have fewer entrances and combine signing. So the problem with these sort of smaller lots when they're not combined, or even if in this case they're a little under 2 acres and aren't combined, just not the most efficient use on a commercial corridor. Not the type of design that's ideal in terms of commercial development. There is a staff analysis point by point on your evaluations of these criteria. I think it's sort of a mixed bag, and it's a sort of thing about, again, how is it going to be developed, how is it going to be managed, etc. There's no imminent threat. It's not obviously going to be a nuisance, just a matter of how it's designed and how it's managed. Staff recommendations, what I provide to the Planning Commission and to you is there are real good reasons to turn this request down, and there are real good reasons to accept it. So here, in terms of approving it, you've already got commercial zoning next door in the area. There's a philosophy, let the market decide whether this is good for commercial development or not. There's a philosophy that some people believe in, that these type of corridors should be highly commercialized with the most intense uses that you can mitigate for any negative type of things that happen. There is supportive residential. Chances are the neighborhood would shop here. It would use whatever facilities. It's not like they're way out in the middle of nowhere. We don't have any strong comprehensive policies that would indicate denial. On the other hand, for denial, again, we don't want to strip commercialize. What's the plan? What's the idea behind this commercial location versus any other commercial location? Is this even an area where we would typically think that we would start commercialization or a node? I think maybe not, but that's something that you've got to decide, for your own plan and what you would anticipate for this order. Maybe you like the idea of commercial there, but maybe it's a little too early. There are certainly other places where you could have infill commercialization, fill in some empty storefronts, better utilize the commercial areas that are already existing. And I already talked about the efficiency, that these small commercial lots just aren't very efficient from a commercial standpoint. The Planning Commission did have this case before them at their May 10th meeting. We had one of the commissioners absent. It was a 3-1 vote to recommend approval to you. The concern of the one commissioner that voted against it, he expressed this during the meeting, was he just wasn't sure what's being proposed. Are we getting retail uses, or are we getting these mini warehouses? And without that certainty, he felt the need to vote against the proposal. This is the aerial that we looked at before. And apparently, I've learned this recently, that these actually were rented out apparently as space, as if they were mini warehouses. So there was a business going on. These weren't just stored there apparently. They were actually people renting space and putting their goods in there. Maybe
They
similar.
pay their
things.
occupational tax with their registered business with the county.
I've got a
You
little
don't know what
confusion.
property
Some
it
of them did in there. I think he actually did pay.
Okay.
And you know, again, at least on the one lot here, he had the C2 zoning, but not over here. But again, maybe it was there so long. I mean, I didn't do that kind of research, but there's your area. Here's the zoning. So here you'll see where we've got these parcels that are the C2. So this is the one that had these already, and this is one that's vacant. Interestingly enough, you'll see where those mini warehouses are. It's zoned R2. So those mini warehouses don't have the proper zoning. But again, I'm going to guess that those mini warehouses have been there a long time and probably predated zoning, so they would be grandfathered in if they didn't not continue to pay their occupation tax. So again, what he was requesting that this would be C2, and then I believe what he was telling us would he combine these two, and then his mini warehouse proposal, which again has to be a special exception, that he's got to go back through the process. If that is what he intends on doing, he would combine those two lots. This is what the, looking straight into the parcel from 19. You can see the mini warehouses to the south there. And that's looking south on 19. You can see there's a lot of undeveloped areas. So is this really an area that should be developed commercial now? Is this the time? And that's a legitimate question. This is looking to the north and to the south, but on the other side. No, this is to the north on the same side of the road. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Could you go back to the aerial?
Yes, sir.
So is the plan that you gathered from him is to combine those two parcels into one parcel?
Yes.
So that would kind of eliminate that whole efficiency?
Well, I still
But-
think it's on the small side, but
Yeah.
does it make it better? It makes it a little better.
So you're saying these two parcels will be combined. What about this parcel here?
That's the owner, Mr. Adams owns that and the mini warehouses. So I don't have any knowledge that Matt bought that parcel there. Mr. Carlos Bell, I believe
Have these
is
two.
now deceased. He owned those two, and I believe that's what Mr. Smith bought.
And the lot back to the south, before the mini warehouses is already C2, is that correct?
Yes, and that's owned by the same gentleman that owns the mini warehouses. I believe, unless Matt bought those, but I don't remember him mentioning that. I think, again, it was the passing of Mr. Bell that there was the opportunity that this property became available.
And so in order for him to obviously combine those two, they have to be zoned the same. That's kind of why he's going through this step first in order to combine them.
Well, and probably the footprint of what he wants for his mini warehouses would be that large. I mean, you look at the one that is to the south, Mr. Adams, and you can see the size. And that's not really a very large
I mean-
warehouse development.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would like to see if that's the end result is the mini warehouses. I would like to see how, if we approve the C2 to put those mini warehouses, a site plan showing what the proposed.
But he has to come back to us.
If he chooses mini warehouses, if this is approved.
Can we put a stipulation in this that if approved, those lots have to be combined to make one lot?
Certainly.
That way we don't approve something that we got, at that point, we got three small lots that are undersized. And they could be three separate commercial operations,
Yeah.
individually owned from that same site.
That is a legitimate condition.
with 3 separate entrances
Right.
right on 19. Yeah, that's what I wouldn't like that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
sir.
had a question, because I don't think I forgot to ask Doug this before he presented, but does each one of the lots have a curb cut?
Doesn't look like.
I don't recall, but if you look at the aerial, you can certainly see there is one sort of right there in between them.
Mhm.
And the next one appears to be on the Adams property. So at least by the aerial, it appears not.
So those curb cuts would have to, I mean, a legitimate driveway or a curb cut would have to be permitted by GDOT.
Right.
Okay.
They probably require a decel lane.
Yes, it certainly would be DOT access permit.
You know, I got some willies about this on the county. If we rezone it to C2, you can just about do anything you want. You know, if it's not for sure, he wants to go after the mini warehouses, you can put an impound lot. You can do, right, Doug?
Anything allowed in C2, unless there are restrictions, right?
So this one lot is 0.91 acres. If you combine the 2 lots, what would be this?
The other one's 0.86, so a little under 2 acres. Right, but it meets the minimum size requirements for C2, but it's still not very big. I mean, you know, a shopping center, that's maximum efficiency. You got the same customers, they don't have to move their cars. You minimize access, the signage can be combined, all those wonderful things that a larger development.
Well,
Is this Seward? Is this Seward?
No.
I didn't think it was.
So, I mean, it would make sense to me that he would want to know if this is going to be permitted to be a, you know, we're going to go with the rezoning before he does any site design or anything like that, because if you say no, then he now only has the one, and I think, I don't know, I think he has the other lot and the other warehouses. So he could, but so just assume that we don't know that. He just has the one lot, so why go to the expense of doing any kind of site design work without this? So it seems prudent to me that, you know, he gets the rezoning request done, and then comes back and says, okay, but I get you. You know, there's plenty of cases out there where we've had things that were zoned commercial and things have happened, and it may not have been what we would have liked to have seen, such as an impound lot. Mr. Sadler, I have a question for you, though, if you don't mind. Did Mr. Smith talk to you at all?
No, I had to reach out to him. He did not reach out to me. I only
Okay.
found out through a mutual acquaintance. I don't know him personally. I just found out through a mutual acquaintance that he had purchased the property. And then I saw the zoning request. I couldn't go to the zoning meeting. I was out of town at that particular
Okay.
time. So no, I didn't. The only thing that we discussed was, he told me mini warehouses was the initial plan. And of course, now we're hearing retail shops. And I will say, retail shops without small property, I would be concerned about traffic and parking in that area. That's just me personally. But I just don't know exactly what's going in there as far as for me to comment.
So Doug, I have a question for you. All right, so could it be that we're sitting here talking about retail shops here, knowing, because we had the moratorium and we said no, we weren't allowing any of this stuff, so did he move forward with this and he's calling it retail shops and not calling it, because he went to the planning commission while we had a moratorium?
Right.
So is he,
But he
in your
did that-
opinion, is he just trying to accelerate the process here?
Well, I tried to explain to him that he actually has prolonged the process really, because he could have, now that the moratorium's off, done the
That's all they
rezoning, and
request.
as soon as we finish that, you could be having the special exception hearing tonight. So he's actually doubled the length of what the process he's gonna go through, but he chose to submit the application, so. But of course, we didn't know what was gonna happen with the moratorium when he submitted at the time, and y'all probably didn't know what was gonna happen with the moratorium, so this was his choice at the time with the circumstances that were in place at the time.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just wished I knew what was going there.
Well, I mean, if you
I mean,
want, I think his intention is to put mini warehouses.
That's what I was about to say. I mean, if we be, if, you know, I'm not speaking for everybody else, but if we're okay with potentially the mini warehouses, I mean, my initial thought is stipulated it only be in a mini warehouse. And then we come back, see the site plan, see how, you know, what it's gonna look like, and then we can make that decision if we, I mean,
You want to put that in the form of a motion?
I will.
Well,
Go ahead.
just, I would like to say both of those lots combined if we're.
Yeah, I
We got
definitely-
non-conforming lots at this point, and I don't want, what I don't want to see is a retail business on that lot and a retail business on that lot. And then we don't know what's gonna go on either lot, and, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, Matt had some discussions with me and discussed with me that his plans, but when I saw this here is totally different, and I don't necessarily have a problem with many warehouses at all. I would like to see the lots combined. Condition put on it that the lots are combined to one lot, and obviously there'd be some buffers. And I need to see a plan. I mean, I think that, and I think he probably went this route because it was, at the time, he thought maybe this was the fastest route because of the moratorium, because he's got to get it, you know, he's got to start getting building quotes and contractors, et cetera, lined up, and he's trying to accelerate the process, but I thought that, and I was probably the one that said it, but I don't think we should ever rezone a piece of property unless we know the commercial, what's going there. I mean, we got evidence up and down all of our roads here of commercial property, and we like, man, you know, if we'd only known. So I agree with you that I like to see a buffer, conditional approved based on mini warehouses and combining the lot. Now, you're probably a little bit better at me at putting that into a motion, but
I here's one of you, right?
Yeah. I can put that in a motion.
You know, that's an option. Yeah, so whatever y'all want to do. I mean, if you want to put that in the form of a motion.
Yeah, I'll offer a motion to put a stipulation to combine the lots and make one lot
All lots in his ownership?
in his ownership. Yes. Thank you for that clarification. And to have a buffer, to show some type of buffer with the site plan, which will come before us. And then the stipulation to only be mini warehouses.
should we say combine there? Because I heard the ownership thing, and that really
Yeah.
doesn't impact the situation.
No, combine all lots that he has potentially ownership in. So that means if he ends up owning all four of those lots, you'd have to combine all those into one lot.
You want the lots that the existing warehouses are owned to be consolidated into that one? I mean, that's
Yeah,
what you
The
just said.
existing mini warehouses is owned by a totally different person that's not asking for anything, even though it's owned incorrect.
But we do have a question whether that third lot is in his ownership or not, so I think that the way we worded it takes care of
Yeah,
that situation.
I would like to see is if it's a single owner for any of those lots, I would like to see it be combined into one. With
Y'all have
ownership.
made my life confusing here. So I'm gonna try to, so that I can restate this. So that I understand. So your motion, you move to approve with the condition that it is only for a mini warehouse storage type thing. That the lots fall under one ownership and they are all consolidated, knowing that and that we will see a site plan to include setbacks, plans, you know, the buffers. We need to see the site plan. So okay. Is there a second? And then I'll restate it again.
I'll say.
Okay.
Discussion.
Okay. So I have a motion to restate it again. So Jessica, keep me straight here. So we're moving to approve and with the rezoning to C2 under the condition that it is only to be used for a mini warehouse storage type facility, knowing that it has to come back to us for the special exception, and that we will, that they will be one owner, one lot, with a design plan before we approve before we entertain the warehouse or anything else for that matter. So the only thing that can go there is a mini storage warehouse. Any discussion?
You kind of covered the other part. I was going to say that he does have to come back before the board for a special exception. And then he has to have design plans and buffers and everything else, right, Douglas?
Based on the 3 conditions I've heard yet.
Yes.
And he has to come back to us for a mini warehouse because it's in our ordinance that it.
Well, basically, you said you're either gonna come back for special exception or you can't use your land for anything.
But our ordinance says for a warehouse, you got it for a special warehouse or by special exception only by our ordinance.
Right.
So we're not waiving anything or creating a special, we're not putting anything undue on this, just the process that this individual chose to bring this to us. It requires us to go back to the planning commission with a special exception and all that. So,
Exactly.
okay, so there'll be a good time for the neighbors out there to have an opportunity to meet with the owner and to look at site plans and talk to people.
There will be
Planning
additional yellow
commission.
signs posted out there.
And we'll talk to folks at the planning commission and talk to the commissioners about the site work, the proposed site work.
And I'll make one other comment, nothing to change the
No.
motion. I mean, the reason why I'm pursuing this route is because if there was a direction, if there was a clear direction of what was going to be placed there, like Commissioner Ellington said, I think that would give us a better indication of how to either approve or deny. So that's kind of
I mean,
my 2 cents.
to me, since this is a discussion, I mean, you look at what's there now, we're not really changing the use of it. It is a commercial. I ride by it multiple times every day. I've seen yard sales going on out there. I've seen people put stuff in those storage units out there for all practical purposes. Mr. Sattler, you see it more than I do. It's a commercial, it's being used as a commercial entity or use right now. So with that, is there any further? Yes, sir.
Now that this is taking place, I guess this is not we can't do this because it wasn't advertised, is if we do that, to go ahead and rezone those mini warehouses that are in R2 now to C2 also. But I don't think we can do that because
The owner hasn't asked for it.
Different owner, we didn't advertise.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Do I need to restate the motion?
I have.
Okay. So you have the motion. You've heard the motion. Ms. Jones, call for a vote.
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay. All right. We'll move along. Next on the agenda are public comments. Mr. Sattler, before you leave, you signed up for public comments. Is there any?
I'm sorry, I signed up both of them.
Okay, all right. You were covered.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right. There's no one else signed up for public comments. Guess we don't have anybody to call. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. You have the May 19th, 2022 SPLOSH meeting minutes and the May 25th regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion on the consent?
So move. Second.
Second. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder.
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, new business. Discussion and possible consideration to approve the process to begin abandoning a section of Stewart Road. Jason?
Mr. Chairman, this was an item we discussed at the June 2nd work session, just as a quick refresher. Staff presented to you at the work session a section of Stewart Road at the intersection of Jugtown There's a what you'd call a duplicative intersection, and there's also a sort of an island, privately owned piece in the middle of it, and the property owner is looking to have us abandon that portion, which is on the west side. So, just to recap the discussion at the work session, myself and the road superintendent, if the board wants to move forward with it, we're supportive of it. Having the dual intersection there doesn't really provide any real public purpose, and from an alignment point of view, it's probably safer only to have the one intersection, which is more of a 90-degree angle, but the staff will follow whatever the board's direction is on this matter.
Okay. So basically, you're looking for a vote to move forward on this by
Right.
staff?
Or not.
Okay.
Just also to recap, the majority of the legal work would be handled by the property owner's attorney, David Britton. That's correct.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, you've heard the request from the staff. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we do not pursue this. That part of the road is a whole lot better than the other part of the road. It's been a county road for, I have no idea how long. It's a good paved portion of the road, and I see no reason that we would give that road up. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Well, you know me, I'll say my 2 cents. I respectfully disagree with you guys because, I see this little bit of land right here, and what's that ever going to be used for? Looking at the rights of the property owner and what's in the best interest of the property owner. I get it, but that little spur of road right there, I agree with the staff. I don't think it serves any purpose, but that's okay if we disagree. So, any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, you have a motion to not pursue abandonment of Stewart Road. Is that the best way to sum it up? Okay. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
No. Okay. All right. Moving along. Discussion and consideration to approve mid-year budgets. Jason?
Mr. Chairman, the summary of these budgets was also presented at the June 2nd work session. Included in your packet is the detailed submission from all of the following agencies: the Griffin Judicial Circuit, the Public Defender's Office, the District Attorney's Office, the Upson County Health Department, Department of Family and Children Services, and our Pine Mountain Library System. The 2021 combined total for these, you'll see on the top worksheet, was $1,297,000. The requested for 2022 is slightly less at $1,275,341. For all told, it represents about a 2% decrease year to year. The most significant decrease is in the Griffin Judicial Circuit budget, which was a decrease of roughly $21,000 or 11%. And that mostly had to do with some of the changes in judges' salaries and staff.
Well, there's a vacancy right now, too.
Although I believe if you look in the detail, they're still...
They're budgeting
Yeah,
for it.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Mhm. If the board has any specific questions, these requests this year went to our finance director. He's also in attendance. But our recommendation is to adopt as presented.
Okay. You have the staff's recommendation. Like I said, follow up from a work session. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve it. I mean, it's, a pretty good decrease, and
Okay.
I'm happy with it.
All right. I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. All right, discussion and possible consideration of the joint sewer agreement.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, if I may, and I know I've had a lot of one-off conversations with commissioners over the last couple of days, and certainly appreciate their input, especially with regards to what was presented from the city. What you have in your packet is a color-coded version of what the city adopted, and I just want to share just a few concerns with you and why I recommend that we table the approval to a future date. I have been in discussions with Mayor Pro Tem and by text the city manager who's on vacation. I'm trying not to bother. He's with his family for a few weeks. But my main concerns are as follows, and I think Commissioner Ellington and others have additional comments they want to make. But my main concerns are in section 7.9. This was something that was not included in the version that our work group looked at. And 7.9, and you know, I certainly understand it from the city's point of view, but it adds language that essentially would make the agreement null and void if for whatever reason EPD was to decrease their treatment limit. So essentially it might put the county in a position where we would have paid for a project, you know, maybe perhaps we'd have had a share of it, our share would be roughly $2 million in a project or 1.7, that later on, if they were unable to maintain their permit, then we would actually lose our capacity, but having already spent the capital dollars to do the project. I definitely understand what the city's trying to do here, because I think in a way they're trying to say they have to, how are they going to provide us capacity if EPD comes and reduces that, but in the same time, we're not the ones treating the waste and we don't have control over that. So I think that's a section we need to work through. 7.11 is also language that was added, and it talks about a percentage contribution of capital expenditures for cost to operate, maintain, rehabilitate, and renovate a section of the line, which I think in our work group we had decided that, I think that language was actually in there originally and we struck it only because we're also obligating the county to pay 3 mills of tax on any property that's utilizing this agreement. So there's the revenue source for that. Plus, you know, we encourage them, since they're going to control the rate, they should be able to build the CapEx into the rate. But the main problem I have with it now, the last section essentially says that to provide the funding for that, we would use unincorporated revenues through our unincorporated millage. You know, in other words, we wouldn't be able to raise those funds through taxation of people that are in the city and on the system, which makes sense. But then because they added that, in my opinion, it conflicts with the statement in 7.1, where if you'll see on the third and fourth lines, it's saying that this can and will be applicable both in and outside the corporate limits. So say so the conflict would be if there was say an IDA project in the city limits that they're going to apply this capacity to, but therefore they're asking that the capital expenditures on that 10% only come from unincorporated revenue, that obviously conflicts, and not sure that would even be legal. And then the last part, I think one of the things that was, you know, near and dear to the IDA and to the county was the automatic aid portion, where anyone that was participating in this agreement would have automatic aid for fire services from the city. And to us, that gave us a real sales advantage to the industrial park, that they're going to have like full service fire coverage from a full-time fire department. And I did confirm with the city manager that that was omitted accidentally, but it is what they executed. So therefore, I would recommend that we not execute it until we, you know, talk about some of the items that I brought up, and, you know, give them the opportunity to put that section back in there. Like I said, I think I think it's still pretty close, and we just have a few items to work through, but, you know, we essentially were given this copy a few hours after our work session was over, and we didn't have time to really review it. But with those comments, those were the main concerns that I had, and I know commissioners had others. So my recommendation would be to reconvene the work group to get one more draft.
So it's
on
been
it.
tweaked. So Commissioner Ellington, myself, and Jason met with with the city counterparts for the most part. Councilman Tucker, Mayor Stallings, and Russell. And since that last meeting, this is now two changes to what we pretty much have said, we're okay with. So I think we table this, and we need to go back and meet with those folks again and discuss the changes in more detail. Mr. Elliott?
Yeah. Y'all pretty much covered it. We had some one-off conversations about it, but yeah, I think we can get there, but some of the stuff just wasn't part of the work group, and I'd just like to be able to ask some questions directly to them since they.
I don't see, and Jason, correct me if you disagree. Is there anything currently that us not moving on this today, holding up any sort of economic development efforts in that park or anywhere in this county?
Not in my opinion, Mr. Chairman. Not in my opinion.
Nor
I think
in
it's
mine.
most important to get it right, because it'll be future boards and managers that will have to use it.
We're not holding anything up.
No, sir.
I agree with you. Okay, so nothing really to vote on unless somebody has a motion they'd like to make, or just
Do we need to make a motion to table?
you table it, then you got to put a date to it. So we're just this is not ready for. This was basically just a discussion.
Yes,
It's not ready for our approval.
The way the clerk put it on the agenda, it's not requiring you to move on it.
That's why.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jessica. Okay. Are we okay to move on? All right.
Mr. Chairman, one other item. If you would, when you have the time to, and if you need the older version to compare, I can send another version out. But if you would, when you have a moment, share your thoughts. If it's something in addition to what I just mentioned, which I've already passed along to the city's attorney and to one of the council members that asked. But if you want to share thoughts, I can go ahead and get everything over to the city that we might have issue with, and that might prime us for that.
Well, we probably
for that
need
meeting,
to
so.
have our working group get together
Yeah.
prior to, so the two of us need to sit down, Jason, and compare notes, and if anybody else has any other thing, and I chopped it up pretty good if you look at mine.
216 also we need to.
Is that the issue, the Morse Crossing lift station?
Right,
That was the-
percentages and
Yeah,
moving forward.
a lot of discussions here about special tax districts, and,
Yeah.
but, and I'll say one last thing, I'm of the opinion, and I think Jason agrees, that, people that use the system should pay for the maintenance and upkeep of the system that they're on. That's what we do with our water system. That's what we, it's a built-in cost to the folks that use the system. And I just don't think that we should be paying for maintenance and upkeep of the system when they have the means to generate those funds.
If the rates ain't right, they need to.
They need to put it in their rates. I mean, they got tap fee, meter fee, impact fee, and use fees. It should be factored into that, not on.
Not the taxpayer.
Right. Although the taxpayers do benefit from the economic impact of the growth of that park, it's just when people using the system need to pay for the maintenance and upkeep of it. So anyway, final comments on that. We'll move on. All right. That being said, Jason.
Mr.
Comments?
Chairman, I have two items. One, I was in receipt actually a few hours ago of the draft version of the Sproul Bluff master plan done by EMC. I sent it out late electronically, so have a look at it. The engineers are asking for staff and commissioners' comments, so this is a working draft. And I haven't had an opportunity to review it myself, but we are in receipt of it. So if you would, just send comments to me. Moving. And then the only other item I had, Mr. Chairman, was just to let everybody know, if they don't know already, about our ACCG Georgia County Excellence Award that we are in receipt of, related to our whole Heart and Soul initiative. There's a nice article in Georgia Trend about Upson County this month. I would encourage people to look. I think we just sent a press release out about it today. So hopefully we'll be sharing that good news. So we are highlighted in Georgia Trends, and we're proud to have been the recipients of that award. So those were the only two items I had.
And the county will be recognized at the annual
November.
conference in November.
Mhm.
So it's good news to share in our successes. So, and it's the community's success. All right. Ms. Jones, do you have anything for us? Mr. English? Mr. Wilder?
I have nothing.
Mr. Jones?
Appreciate y'all coming, every one of you, always do, and people watching. Hopefully we did good by you.
Mr. Watson? Well, hope everybody had a great week, and see you back here in 2 weeks. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you. We're still live.
And it was the same thing. I was something, but it was at an angle.
It's a
I was like, I'm